Imagine there's a magical door. Once you step through it, you can see your past, with all its beautiful and painful memories. Would you be able to face your old scars and try to overcome them? Or would you be too afraid and leave the door closed? That's the story of our movie today. But before we start, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything new. The film begins with David leaving his house while talking on the phone with his father, assuring him that he's going to his friend's wedding and that there's no need to worry about him like always. He ends the call because he doesn't like his father being anxious all the time. Then he finds his car wheel clamped and a parking ticket for stopping in the wrong spot. But at that moment, he notices a poster for a car rental agency, so he decides to go there and rent a car. When he arrives, he finds the place looks like a big, strange warehouse. He approaches a table where a man and a woman are sitting, and they start asking him for his name and personal details. David is surprised by how interested they are in such specifics, as if they're interviewing him. He explains that he just wants to rent a car to attend his friend's wedding. They ask how he plans to get there if he doesn't know the route, and David casually replies that he'll use GPS. But they tell him the car is equipped with its own private GPS system, and he must rely only on it. That's their condition. When David agrees, they seem oddly pleased. Next, we see David driving, guided by the voice of the GPS system. He arrives at the hotel, joins the guests, and at the same time, we see a girl named Sarah arriving in a similar car and entering the hotel. Inside, the bride and groom appear under the rain, and at that moment, David looks at Sarah. Their eyes meet. Later at the reception, the couple introduces David and Sarah to each other, then leave them to talk. They chat for a bit, and when David offers to get her a drink, Sarah says she doesn't want one. With nothing much to say, she walks away. Later, she's seen dancing, completely caught up in the music, while David stands alone, smoking. Sarah sees him, approaches, and jokes that he should stop being so charming. David asks if she's worried about herself around him, and she replies that she's actually worried about him around her. She says she doesn't fall for anyone's charm easily. She has high standards in relationships.
Out of nowhere, David asks if she believes in marriage. Sarah says she does and asks if he likes the idea. David tells her that as a kid, he used to draw pictures of himself married with children. Then Sarah teasingly asks if he wants to marry her. David is taken aback and says she must have had too much to drink. Sarah laughs, saying he's too perfect and probably fake. David insists that he's always been that way, even as a kid. She invites him to dance, but he refuses, so she excuses herself and goes back to the party, leaving him standing there. David keeps watching her, regretting that he didn't dance with her. Later that night, he returns to his hotel room feeling like a failure from missing his chance. The next day, he's back on the road, driving, when he hears the voice of the GPS woman talking to him as if she can actually see him. He's shocked. It's supposed to be just a navigation system. She then suggests taking him on a beautiful journey, saying if he agrees, she'll guide him. David doesn't really understand, but since he's been feeling down and lost, he agrees. She directs him to the first stop, a roadside burger diner. While eating, he suddenly spots Sarah sitting there too. She's just as surprised to see him. She joins him, asking how he ended up there, and he says it's just coincidence. Sarah is amused that fate keeps bringing them together. She asks if he's going to ask her out again, and David reminds her that he already did the night before, but she turned him down to go dance. Sarah replies that it's better not to risk getting close. Outside, it starts raining, but suddenly the rain stops and the sun breaks through. Their cars are parked side by side, and David realizes Sarah rented the same kind of car from the same agency. It seems she also agreed to take the special GPS journey. They say goodbye and get into their cars. But then David's GPS voice tells him to take Sarah with him. At that exact moment, Sarah's car breaks down, so he offers her a ride. They drive together and arrive at the first stop, a stunning natural place. As they walk, they find a door standing alone with nothing behind it. Curious, they go through it and find themselves transported somewhere else, David's childhood lighthouse. He shows her the ocean view and says he used to love coming here as a kid. He opens up about feeling lost, unsure of his direction in life. They continue the journey in the car, still confused about the purpose of this trip they agreed to take. Following the GPS voice, they arrive at another mysterious door. Sarah knocks, someone opens it, and they go in. The guard inside seems to know her. It turns out to be the art museum she loved visiting as a child. Together, they start walking around, looking at the paintings on display. David notices Sarah staring at a painting, deeply moved, as if it awakens an old memory. She tells him her mother died in the hospital the same day she was visiting this museum as a child, and that for years she blamed herself for not being there in her mother's final moments. Later in the car, David asks why she's single. Sarah admits she always ends up cheating, saying she ruins everything she touches, so she avoids relationships altogether. When she asks about him, David says he just hasn't met the right person. She doubts him, calling it a shallow excuse, but he insists it's true. Suddenly, the road changes. They're on a stage where a hospital door opens. They step through and enter Sarah's past. Inside, a doctor tells her her mother passed away an hour ago, peacefully but alone. She asks if her father was there, and when told no, guilt overwhelms her. On stage, David tells her it wasn't her fault. She was somewhere beautiful, at an art museum. But Sarah admits the painful truth. She was with her teacher, having an affair, and lied about the museum ever since, unable to forgive herself. Sarah then enters her mother's hospital room, uncovers her face, and tearfully tells her she'll never forget her kindness. Meanwhile, David walks through the hospital and meets his father, who doesn't recognize him. His father nervously says his newborn son David has health problems and he's scared. David sits beside him, assuring him his son will live. When his father asks if he has children, David says, not yet. His father confesses how terrifying responsibility feels for a parent. A nurse calls him away, and as he leaves, David tells him he'll be a great father. His father smiles and says he'll try. Later, Sarah returns to David, who's waiting with balloons, a teddy bear, and baby gifts. They continue driving, and David shares childhood memories. His mother often left for long stretches. His father carried too much responsibility, always doubting himself. That tension made their bond difficult, and David grew up thinking his father regretted having kids. They stop to rest in a quiet place. David asks if, given the chance, she'd still walk away the night they first met at the wedding. They imagine reliving that night. This time, they dance slowly, sharing a warm, emotional moment. Back in the car, they suddenly hit a deer. The vehicle flips, but they escape unharmed, though it's totaled. Forced to walk, Sarah eventually stops and says they should end things now before repeating old mistakes. She insists love between them will fade once they truly know each other. David says this journey helped them understand what they both need, confessing his love and desire to stay with her. But Sarah says he doesn't really know her, that she destroys every relationship. He insists he does, yet she believes love always fades. David tries to convince her that it lasts if they choose happiness together, but Sarah remains unconvinced, saying it's not worth the risk. David finally accepts it, not wanting to hurt her anymore. The next day, while they're at the hotel, a strange man comes up to them and tells them that he fixed their car. They don't understand how he managed to do it, but they thank him and leave. We then see them driving quietly, continuing their trip, with nothing left to say to each other. David drops Sarah off at the car she had left behind, and she gets in and starts driving. The GPS voice asks if she's ready to continue the rest of her journey, but Sarah replies that the trip has become too emotionally painful. Frustrated, she orders the GPS to take her home because she's tired and just wants to rest. At the same time, David, driving his own car, says he wants to go home too. The GPS then guides each of them to their old homes. When they arrive, each gets out of the car in a different place. David walks through the door and suddenly finds himself transported to his childhood home.
His mother appears, speaking to him as if he were his father, telling him that their son David is waiting in his room because he's late. He realizes he's seeing life through his father's eyes, 20 years in the past. He goes upstairs to his old room. Meanwhile, Sarah opens her front door, looks inside, and freezes in shock before closing it again. From the window, she sees her mother asleep on the couch and realizes she's also in the past, during her childhood. She enters the house, approaches her mother, and softly calls her name. Her mother wakes up smiling and says she's been waiting for her. She wants to go to the kitchen, but Sarah holds her and hugs her tightly. Her mother tells her she's just 12 years old and shouldn't worry so much, then heads to the kitchen to make dinner. Sarah asks if they can watch a movie together like they used to. At the same time, David opens the door to his old room and sees his teenage self sitting there looking sad. The younger David speaks to him as if he were his father, asking if he's disappointed in him. David gently says no. The teenage David then tells him that when his mother was away and he stayed with his father, he used to hear him crying at night. David, deeply moved, explains that he just felt overwhelmed by responsibility back then. Meanwhile, Sarah sits beside her mother as they watch the movie. Her mother falls asleep and Sarah wakes her to open up about her fears, saying her future life will be miserable and full of failed relationships. Her mother admits she too failed in many relationships and never knew why, but tells Sarah she doesn't want her to end up the same. Sarah hugs her, emotional and tearful. Back with David, he tells his younger self that none of it was his fault and assures him he never felt disappointed in him. Sometimes life just makes you feel that way without reason. Sarah lies next to her mother in bed, who tells her to be content with herself first, before looking for happiness in any relationship. Sarah is deeply touched, telling her mother she'll miss her. Her mother smiles, tucks her in, wishes her good night, and leaves the room. At the same moment, David plays with his younger self, enjoying their time together until it's time to leave. Before going, he tells the boy that he's always seen him as special, something he should never forget. He says goodbye and walks away. Sarah also leaves her childhood home, and both she and David drive off. David returns to the rental car agency to return his car, asking the clerk about Sarah. They tell him she hasn't returned hers yet, so he thanks them and leaves. The next morning, David sits outside his house drinking his coffee. Meanwhile, Sarah heads to the agency to return her car but hesitates. She asks the GPS if this is the end of her journey. The GPS replies that she can choose how it ends. Sarah then drives to David's house, surprising him when she arrives. He asks how she found him, and she says the GPS led her there. She tells him she came because there's something he needs to know, that he's someone worth taking a chance on, and if she ever wanted a life partner, it would be him, not anyone else. She confesses that she loves him. David stands, walks toward her, and takes her inside his home. That becomes the final door of their journey. And that's the end of the video. If the story touched you, give it a like and tell us in the comments which part you liked the most. And of course, don't forget to subscribe.